Chapter 489. His body is burly, his shape is similar to that of a big bear, and his height is also huge. When he walks from side to side, he even has a strange illusion. With a height of nearly 7 meters, he looks like a shaking hill. Every time his footsteps land, there will be a slight vibration on the ground. Bear's momentum is extremely terrible and gloomy. Thinking of his past coldness, anyone who faces him will be terrified. Combined with this majestic body, it is full of deterrence. Bartholomew Bear. This guy will enter Shichibukai later. The current members of Shichibukai have nothing to do with him. The sudden change made Dustless's eyebrows solidify, and an absurd idea quietly rose in Dustless's mind. Did he find out that I controlled Dorag? The only reason Dustless can think of is this, which may be the fundamental reason why Bartholomew Bear joined Shichibukai. Impossible, this kid can't find out that I tampered with Dragon's memory at his level. Slightly, Dustless still shook his head. He still has doubts about this. Using Tensigan to modify Dorag's memory is completely undetectable. Even if Bear's means are powerful, he can't detect it. He doesn't have the ability to know it all. In particular, Dustless did not make much change in Dorag's memory. He just changed his life goal to focus on ancient weapons, and his daily life and personality are the original him. While he was deep in thought, a gust of wind and sand suddenly floated in the void. Immediately, a sharp golden hook suddenly appeared behind Wuxian's head. The cold light flickered, and the cold murderous aura made the whole scene suddenly solidified. Crocodile, do you want to die, you bastard? Don't forget where you are. Seeing Crocodile's sudden attack, Sengoku's face was blue. These pirates were really shameless. When they were on the ship, they had already agreed to 3 rules. These big pirates also made guarantees that they would never do stupid things like taking advantage of the situation. Shrouded in a bright golden light, Sengoku did not hesitate to launch his fruit ability. When he tried to stop Crocodile, it was already too late. In such a short distance, Crocodile took the opportunity to attack. Sengoku could not deal with it. He could only watch the sharp iron hook sweep toward Dustless's neck. The person who can make Sengoku and Kazuko bow their heads should not be a fish in the pool. Hello, it's the first time we meet. My name is Crocodile. This is my gift. Seeing that Dustless's body was about to be separated, Crocodile laughed with a cigar in his mouth. Even if this is Mariehua, it can't stop him from killing people. As a pirate, he should be casual and not be bound by the mortal world's commandments. Letting nature take its course is only respected by the weak. Clang. A loud and clear sound rang out, and a faint ripple appeared in the air. Then the sharp iron hook made of pure gold was tightly grasped by a pitch-black hand. Crocodile. Sorry, I'm not too familiar with your name. The unchanging voice fell into everyone's ears, and the unprecedented calmness made everyone's face change slightly. Crocodile is not immortal. Even if his bounty is only the ordinary goods of 81 million berries, his real strength is far beyond his bounty. The New World challenged Whitebeard. Although he lost miserably, the person who could escape from Whitebeard's hands safe and sound explained everything. Don't push your luck. With a black face, Crocodile said hoarsely, and the suppressed hissing coincides with the real Crocodile. Dustless's indifference is the best provocation to him. Crocodile has had this expression before. The only difference is that he is facing a small character who is not worth mentioning. He still vaguely remembers that Whitebeard also had this kind of expression at the beginning, and he couldn't help but think of the scars of the past. As a scar man, Dustless makes Crocodile's heart ache. This indifferent expression was like a sharp thorn that pierced his heart and dignity. Armament hockey is a good practice, but life and death is also your own fault. Staring at Dustless's black hand holding the golden barb, Crocodile's tone has a little more appreciation. It is not difficult to see that he is young and his attainments in armament hockey are quite deep. As Crocodile's voice fell, the tip of the golden barb suddenly overflowed with a few drops of mysterious purple venom. This strange venom ignored the steel skin of armament hockey and rushed into Dustless's meridians and blood vessels. So that's how it is. Is this your trump card? Aware of the abnormality in the blood vessels, Dustless nodded slightly. This Crocodile is also a peerless hero. He can prepare for everything and knows what it means to prepare for a rainy day. Perhaps it is because of his meticulous mind that he challenged Whitebeard and was able to survive. But what do you think venom can change? Boom. The fist wrapped with armament hockey slammed and the golden barb in his hand burst in an instant and turned into small particles like sand. At the same time, the mysterious purple venom that had penetrated Dustless's skin suddenly began to attack, corroding and destroying every inch of his meridians and blood vessels. You have a sharp tongue. When you beg me, I will not give you the antidote. Seeing Dustless's frozen and unchanging face, Crocodile sneered coldly. It was this trick that he used to plot against Whitebeard, and he was able to escape from the world's strongest man. Staring at Dustless's arm, it can be clearly seen that the internal organization has been destroyed and there is no vitality. It has been completely hollowed out and destroyed. Even so, Dustless's relaxed expression remained unchanged from beginning to end, and even the corners of his mouth rose with a sarcastic and indifferent smile. Beg you to hand over the antidote? That's just your wishful thinking. This kind of small raindrops won't have any effect on me. Chapter 490. Dustless has the body of the Jubi and inherited everything that Kagaya should have. It also means that he also has the ability to regenerate without limit. Even if his body is separated and his limbs are broken, only half of his body is left, he can turn decay into magic and regenerate the broken limbs in a short period of time. The so-called deadly venom has no effect on Dustless at all, and even the most basic problems are difficult to deal with. Expecting venom to force Dustless to surrender, Crocodile's idea is really ridiculous and ignorant. In the hollow and transparent arm filled with purple venom, there was a majestic fluctuation of life, like ripples on the water surface, spreading throughout the arm in the blink of an eye. Immediately, it was clear that the dense blood vessels gushed out, and the purple venom swimming inside the arm was quickly squeezed and swallowed at a speed visible to the naked eye. A new body structure was reborn. How is this possible? Even Crocodile, who is used to all kinds of strange things in the world, is immune to all kinds of strange things in the world. His eyes widened and his face was stunned. The venom that can force Whitebeard to surrender, why doesn't it work on this guy? Everything has its vanquisher. Your venom doesn't work on me. Turning his head, looking at Sand Crocodile calmly, Dustless really can't raise the slightest interest. He really didn't pay attention to Crocodile, although the latter has always been a powerful existence with courage and wisdom, has the ferocious attack power of a crocodile, and his character is as cunning as a fox. He is extremely tricky. Dustless can't raise the slightest interest in him. Crocodile, you'd better give this old man a reasonable explanation, otherwise, there will be a bounty criminal called Sand Crocodile in the 6th floor of Impel Down. Staring at Crocodile fiercely, Commander Kong warned in a cold voice. At the same time, his strong body suddenly bulged strangely, and the strong and powerful muscles bulged, and the surface of his skin exuded ferocious tendons. If Crocodile chooses to be perfunctory, Commander Kong will not hesitate to enter the state of armament hockey to capture Crocodile. Hearing this, Crocodile just calmly held the cigar in his mouth. The Marines have been dealing with pirates for many years, but you don't seem to have figured out the character of pirates. In the face of Air Commander's coercion, Crocodile showed no fear and sharply retorted, "Born free and easy, this is the nature of a pirate, this is the way of a pirate. Truth is nothing to pirates." This arrogant and crude conversation left everyone speechless. Dustless's performance is extraordinarily calm. This is the character and style of a pirate. 1 second they can treat each other with sincerity and talk about the future with a heroic spirit. It was also possible that they could take your life in the next second. Such examples were not unique and could be found everywhere. All in all, pirates are a very contradictory group. For example, pirates like Roger, Whitebeard, and Red Hair Shanks are really pursuing the so-called dream, but this kind is a minority. Most pirates are in the name of pursuing their dreams, doing things like killing, burning, and looting. From a simpler point of view, there are 100 different ways to express the pirate dream in 100 pirates, all because their inner ideas are different. There is no right or wrong, there is only the strong and the weak, and the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. You are very confident. Mariehua, who is surrounded by tigers and wolves, has this kind of courage. His view of Crocodile changed slightly and Dustless recognized him. This kind of calmness without fear of life and death is not a casual pretense, but a person's confidence. In other words, Crocodile is confident that he can slip out of the inescapable net laid by Dustless. But His calm face outlined a chill, and the cold killing intent broke out of his body, and the flowing air was frozen, full of suffocating danger. Just between thoughts, it affected the temperature change. This guy's momentum is terrible. He is so young but unexpectedly strong. Cautiously guarding against Dustless, Crocodile's face was gloomy. In a trance, Crocodile's thinking changed dramatically. He was isolated from the world, in a land of ice and snow, surrounded by wind and snow, and there was no life. He is the only one with vitality, and he is about to be the next target waiting to be slaughtered. The world of ice and snow around him is an execution ground specially built for him, and there is no escape. Whiz! A cold wind suddenly blew in his face. Crocodile unconsciously shivered. His body reacted and instinctively wanted to escape. Just as he was about to retreat, he suddenly realized that his body had been imprisoned. The culprit was Wuxia, who had a cold expression. Wu, he intended to speak, but his throat was locked by a cold tender hand, and Crocodile was casually raised in the air by Dustless. The thin willow-like arm was full of strength. Crocodile struggled hard, but it was better than the excessive strength. His face was red and he breathed heavily, exhausting all his strength. Even so, he still couldn't get rid of the dark tender fingers. He was extremely powerless, and a sense of fragility from the depths of his soul arose spontaneously. A thoughtful man like you shouldn't blindly challenge me. What is your purpose? His right arm shook casually, Dustless asked, and at the same time his right hand that was holding Crocodile's throat loosened a lot, so that he could wake up a little. At least he could speak. Using you to test whether my energy can swallow this sea. What do you think of this answer? In such an embarrassing situation, Crocodile still did not choose to compromise and fearlessly smiled at Dustless. Looking at the arrogant Crocodile, Dustless finally threw him away ruthlessly. In the face of Crocodile's ridicule, he just answered with 4 simple words. Vulgar and boring. Chapter 491. The smoke and dust rose, the wind and waves rolled, and the ground pulled out a long and narrow gully. Boom! The large mountain left a large pit visible to the naked eye. Crocodile was powerlessly trapped in it. His pupils turned white and lost their luster. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. When Fleet Admiral Sengoku saw this scene, his heart tightened fiercely. He hated and even hated pirates. Everyone knows that, but at present Crocodile's chess piece has not yet played its value and was easily solved by Dustless. It is a waste of such a good dog. Using the strength of the pirates to attack the pirates, so that the so-called 7 warlords of the sea will be spurned, and there will be no place for them on either side. I didn't kill him, and this kid is not so easy to kill. Shaking his head, Dustless gave Sengoku a look that said there is no need to worry. After all, he is one of the 7 warlords of the sea. No matter how fragile he is, it is impossible for him to be easily killed. Sengoku, did you invite us here to publicly insult us? Xiong took the opportunity to attack. He had no good feelings for the marine. Even if he joined the Shichibukai, he had no choice. It was Crocodile who started first. Even if he was killed, that kid deserved it. No one forced him to do so. This is his own fault. Tyrant, Xiong distorted the facts in front of him, and Admiral Sengoku sneered. His fists were clenched. If he only had slight hatred for Crocodile, for Bartholomew Xiong, he could not wait to get rid of him. Xiong hated the government and the marine. His nickname Tyrant was all the blood of the marine. The reason why Xiong chose to support Crocodile was that he wanted to suppress the marine. In other words, it was an invisible demonstration. Ka ka ka. The crisp sound of stones shattering rang out, attracting everyone's attention. When they looked up, there was an additional hazy voice in the empty sand. Is it just a slight fracture? Dustless frowned as he looked across the sandstorm. A white smoke floated out of the sand, and then Crocodile came out of it with a cigar in his mouth. His head was covered with blood, but his fighting power was still there. What's so surprising? I have been in the New World for several years. How can I not know armament hockey? Looking viciously at Dustless, Crocodile said viciously. At the same time he took a deep breath with lingering fear. Just now, if he hadn't used armament hockey in time to defend himself, even if he didn't die, he would have turned into a pile of minced meat. You're still far from being able to challenge me. Just glancing at Crocodile, Dustless left everyone with a view of his back. His ethereal figure turned into a gust of wind, coming and going without a trace. Even though the light of a firefly was as bright as light, it could not illuminate the entire void. Don't even think about leaving. Crocodile, who caught sight of Dustless, immediately turned into a tornado-shaped hurricane and chased after him. Obviously, he did not intend to let Dustless go easily. He was beaten black and blue all over while the other party was perfectly fine. He couldn't bring himself to do that. Desert Storm. Raising his hand, a strong tornado-shaped storm swept out. The rapidly rotating storm was no different from the sharp sword light, and the surrounding rock surface was left with deep pit marks. The messy traces were numbing and coincided with being cut by tens of thousands of sword hilts at the same time. It can be imagined that a human being composed of flesh and blood, once swallowed by this violent storm, would have a miserable end. I'm afraid that the best outcome would be to be cut into pieces. What's the use of this kind of fancy trick against me? In the blink of an eye, the desert storm swallowed Dustless's body. Under the high-speed flow of the storm, the wind turned into thousands of blades and attacked Dustless. Clang, clang, clang. Inside the desert storm, the roar of steel continued and sparkling sparks flew around Dustless. The 360-degree attack was almost impossible to defend against. There must be a limit. You crocodile attacked me again and again. Do you really think I have a saint's heart that won't kill people? Dustless in the desert storm looked cold, surrounded by golden energy fluctuations. The evil golden light came from a distant world, and the power of this world couldn't shake it at all. Is it that weird trick again? Jinbi was silent, his huge iron fist closed, sweat stains fell to the ground along the gaps of his 5 fingers, and his eyes were faintly spread with red blood lines. What weird thing? Crocodile's proud face froze, the smile on the corner of his mouth also froze, and then his face became gloomy. Looking at his line of sight, one could clearly see a golden evil head covering Dustless. This substantial evil wave was soul-stirring, revealing a palpitating power. It was just a simple head, but its height reached a terrifying level of 6 or 7 meters. This monster doesn't seem to be in a complete state. Looking at the head of Tengu covering Dustless, Crocodile said gloomily to himself. Even a tiny head was 6 to 7 meters tall. It was an exaggeration to say that it was almost 10 meters tall. One could imagine how huge it would be when all 4 of its limbs were present. Crocodile, you don't seem to have figured out one thing. His eyes were cold and the majestic repulsion spewed out, and the desert storm, which was nearly 10 meters high, burst. Looking at the stunned crocodile, Dustless's murderous intent was even stronger. His left eye turned into Rinnegan Sharingan, his right arm was raised high, and his palm was aimed at the dazed crocodile. His eyes were locked on Dustless's left eye. The mysterious strange eye was full of indescribable magic. Crocodile's heart flashed and he instinctively felt that something was wrong. As he was about to retreat, a majestic gravitational force shrouded him, and Dustless's mouth burst into a cold word. Wanxiang Tianyu. Chapter 492. The seemingly pale and weak little hand spewed out an irresistible force. The flow of air was distorted by this gravitational force and was sucked back. In an instant, everyone present had an illusion that the ordinary-looking black hole in Wu Chen's palm was an absolute domain that could shake the whole world. Any ability was different from person to person. Although Dustless rarely used the 10,000 Mammoth Heaven summoning technique, it didn't have any difficulty in controlling it. For him it was as simple as eating and drinking. The power it exerted was also far beyond the vortex gate. Idiot, no matter what ability you have in front of gravity, you can only be helpless. Seeing that Crocodile was still struggling under the influence of gravity, Dustless sneered again and again. This guy is really hopeless. Gravity, the meaning of this word is not for nothing. Bastard, even a Logia user can be swallowed? Crocodile's face was pale, but he was still struggling to resist. Although this was the case, he was getting closer and closer to Dustless. Even if he elementalized and turned into countless sand, he was still attracted by the gravitational force. Even the surrounding space changed with this force. To some extent, gravity is the natural enemy of all creatures. The scope of this gravitational shroud is not very large, but it is surprisingly terrifying. The pure density is beyond imagination. Crocodile can't escape. Dustless's thin little hand is the hand of God. The helpless crocodile exhausted all his strength, but he couldn't avoid the gravitational force and slowly approached Dustless. In the blink of an eye, Dustless once again grabbed his throat. The same scene can be said to be an unexpected accident for the first time, but the second time under the eyes of the public he was defeated by overwhelming strength. Moreover, Dustless grabbed his throat in the same way. This is an unprecedented humiliation for Crocodile. At the moment he began to struggle frantically. His face was red and his neck was thick. He struggled to shake his body. Even so, his neck was tightly bound. Only the lower half of his body was swaying. It was extremely difficult to breathe. This is the gap between us. No matter how you struggle to escape, Sun Wukong will never be able to escape from Tathagata's five-finger mountain. Stupid Crocodile. Looking up at Crocodile, Dustless's clear eyes were finally replaced by contempt. Crocodile was just a kid who had not grown up and was not worthy of his attention. Bang! His hand loosened and Crocodile fell to the ground. His eyes were scarlet and fierce. He was about to launch an attack on Dustless, but a ruthless foot cruelly suppressed him and made him unable to move. Bastard, I'll definitely tear you to pieces in the future. With his rough face against the ground, Crocodile lost his composure and roared hysterically at Dustless. After being suppressed 3 times in a row, even if he had a heart of steel, Crocodile was still furious. The flames that gathered from all directions had already burned his old face red. Idiot, the reason why you are so proud is nothing more than to escape from the strongest man in the world. Seeing Crocodile's self-esteem, Dustless responded with a sneer and sarcasm. Humph. Hearing this, Crocodile just snorted. He was silent and did not answer. From his comfortable face, it was clear that he was very proud to be able to escape from Whitebeard's hands. After all, Whitebeard is one of the 3 legendary pirates and is known as the strongest man in the world. Although he was defeated in the end, Crocodile was proud of his defeat. In particular, he was able to slip away from Whitebeard in the end, which also made him a little more arrogant in the face of pirates of the same level. Kid, you really are a kid. Don't you realize it yet? Seeing this, Wu Chen sneered even more. He looked down at Croxtol, who was under his feet, and gave him a hopeless look before smirking coldly. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. Whitebeard admires your fearlessness. Of course, maybe he's moved by compassion and wants to turn you into one of his army of sons. You're so extraordinary at such a young age and you dare to challenge the strongest person. I'm sure Whitebeard admires you very much. In short, today in my opinion, you want to escape from Whitebeard. It is tantamount to a fool's dream. Coldly and ruthlessly attacking Crocodile. Although this kid is strong now, he has not reached the peak state in the future, and now Whitebeard is in the prime of his life. In the face of Whitebeard in the prime of his life, even an admiral can't escape death. The reason why he let this kid go, according to Dustless's personal speculation, is that Whitebeard appreciates his fearless attitude. Nonsense. Hearing this, Crocodile retorted angrily. How can he be calm when it comes to his dignity? Facts speak louder than words. You are so fragile, Crocodile. After glancing at him indifferently, Dustless said expressionlessly, then he lifted his right foot slightly and mercilessly kicked Crocodile. Boom. A black shadow swept out and any obstacles in its way collapsed and annihilated instantly. It was as powerful as a tiger. With a loud roar, Crocodile's body slammed heavily on the mountain. Without looking at him, Dustless left. This kind of ant that he is not interested in, even if he kneels down and begs for death, he will not dirty his hands. Bastard, bastard, kill me if you have the guts. The blood in his lungs was boiling and Crocodile's voice trembled as he gritted his teeth and roared. The shame that Dustless gave him was unforgettable, and it left a shadow in his heart that he could not get rid of. Kill you? I said you don't deserve it. His footsteps paused and he glanced at Crocodile from the corner of his eyes. Then Wu Chen swaggered away. His figure silently said that Crocodile's value was as light as dust, not worth mentioning. Idiot, which adult and immature kid would know. Chapter 493. The distant sigh resounded through the dark night, leaving only Crocodile with a stunned face. His gray pupils stared straight at the gradually disappearing sea level. After a long while, his heart also changed quietly. His eyes stared at Wu Chen's back. His dark eyes were filled with blood vessels and it was hazy. If I don't take revenge, I swear I'm not a man. Waiting for Dustless to completely disappear, Crocodile's murderous aura burst out and then whistled out, covering every inch of the surroundings. The flowers and trees were frozen in a few seconds, and then a gust of evening wind blew and slowly dismembered and withered. What a foolish man. He actually wants to challenge Louis South, Saint. Commander Kong and Sengoku looked at each other and shook their heads and sighed. Crocodile was like a moth to the flame and he was going to be smashed to pieces. However, Dustless's light seemed to be too gentle, or he was too noble and disdained to burn ants like Crocodile. You Marines are not taking the opportunity to beat us, are you? With a muffled snort, Bartholomew Kuma blew out a bone-piercing chill, and his momentum was accumulating. As long as Sengoku and Commander Kong don't give a reasonable explanation, he will take the opportunity to attack. Jinbe's position was in a neutral state. He turned a deaf ear to the sudden change. He didn't support the Marines or Tyrant Kuma. He looked coldly at everything that was about to happen. Hearing the words of the tyrant, Sengoku and Commander Kong both frowned. Everything that Kuma did today was extremely abnormal. Sengoku even has a ridiculous illusion that this is another human being wearing the coat of a bear. His every move is the opposite of his usual silence. The bear rarely talks to outsiders. Today he is unexpectedly more, and he also supports Crocodile, an alien. It was not his usual style at all. As I said before, the one who provoked Crocodile was Crocodile. That kid has only himself to blame for his current situation. If you want to see if this old man's fist can break your body, I don't mind giving it a try. Taking a step forward, Commander Kong sneered. A mere Bartholomew Bear, he really didn't put him in his eyes. He was confident that he could arrest this executioner who was covered in the blood of the Marine and bring him to justice. What's more, this is Mariehua, the territory of the world government. It's just that if Tyrant Kuma is killed, a series of consequences will be unbearable, and even the Marine will fall into the biggest crisis in history. If they secretly solve Kuma, Marine's reputation will definitely be ruined and they will be spurned by the world. Under the banner of Shichibukai, they deceived the big sheep into the tiger's mouth and then conspired to kill them. When the world knows what kind of shock it will cause, the justice accumulated by the Marine will also become a pile of waste paper. Everyone, we seem to be here to discuss the Shichibukai force, not to tear each other down. Jinbe suddenly said when he saw that there was a possibility of a misfire. Looking at Tyrant Kuma's eyes, there was a hint of persuasion. As the saying goes, a wise man submits to circumstances. At this time, this is the territory of the world government. It's already shackled. At this time, it's tantamount to death. At the same time, Crocodile also walked over indifferently. His expression was no longer as arrogant as before. It seemed that he was not the one who had just been beaten. Damn bastard, I will definitely let you offend me. Wiping the blood stains from the corner of his mouth, Crocodile's heart was gloomy. Such a short contest also allowed him to thoroughly see the level of his strength. Perhaps in the face of the four seas and even some pirates in the New World, Crocodile can be calm. In front of the big man, he is just a chestnut in the sea. Just like Wuxia from before, in a short period of time for an incense stick to burn, he was bashed to the point his head was sprayed with blood. And not to mention his entire body was covered in injuries, he'd lost the thing that was most important to his face and dignity. It's good that you're not dead. Glancing coldly at Crocodile, Sengoku was as quiet as stagnant water. Being able to accept these pirates does not mean that he can open his heart. Whether it is Crocodile, Bartholomew Kuma, or Jinbe, their hands are stained with the blood of Marines. The enemy is close at hand. Instead of killing the enemy, they have to come together to cooperate. Sengoku's heart can be imagined. Let me disappoint you, I am very healthy. Moving his stiff neck, Crocodile let out a crisp crackling sound. He was at ease. Wuxia didn't kill him because his body was strong enough. Even though many of his ribs were broken, his combat power was still there. Not many people paid attention to this short little song. However, it had left a deep and indelible impression on the people present. Xianxia had easily defeated Crocodile, beating him until he was like a dead dog without any ability to retaliate. This had exceeded everyone's imagination. What is surprising is that Dustless's relaxed and calm expression. Even the peddlers and the civilians can see that he did not use all his strength. Otherwise, Crocodile wouldn't be as simple as struggling at death's door. What is the purpose of that guy? He should join Shichibukai in the future. And that crocodile is obviously an ambitious man. He will never do such a stupid thing as blindly challenging me. In the dark corridor, a black shadow silently streaked across. Under the bright moonlight, one could clearly see a pale face and deep, ink-like eyes that carried a faintly discernible blankness and doubt. Crocodile is meticulous. Every time he acts, the plan in his mind is also laid out. He is very cunning. As for the tyrant Kuma, Dustless's understanding is quite one-sided. He only knows that he is a man of few words. And what surprised Dustless most was that he joined the Shichibukai a few years later. All in all, Dustless's gathering of the Shichibukai is too strange, and it is the opposite of what he expected. Chapter 494. At night, the breeze was getting cold, the moonlight was like a plate, and the stars all over the sky dotted the dark night sky, which was beautiful. Inside the gloomy and desolate room, there was no sign of life. It was deathly still, making it seem eerily cold. Waves of cold air drifted out endlessly, giving people the pure feeling that this place was an iceberg isolated from the world. A vague outline can be vaguely seen in the darkness, and a faint wave of air exhaled from the nostrils from time to time. Crocodile and Tyrant Bear, these two men. Suddenly, in the originally pitch-black space, there was a long sigh of confusion. A pair of shining eyes appeared, bright and deep. Even though the surrounding environment had been swallowed up by darkness, this pair of eyes could not be dyed black. There must be a demon when things are abnormal. The sudden appearance of Tyrant Bear has been out of Dustless's control. Although he is only an insignificant secondary character, in the end he is also a small chess piece. This sudden character still makes him confused. One wrong move, the whole board falls apart. The role of Bear may not be so great, but it still makes Dustless stretch out his doubts. At present, Fleet Admiral Sengoku has come to Mariehua, and Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, has also given him the order to immediately establish Shichibukai. At most, in these few days, this deformed pirate organization that can reasonably plunder the world will come out. There are only a few members today. As for Tyrant Bear, he is naturally among them, but Dustless clearly remembers that he joined Shichibukai in the future. The early Shichibukai did not have him as a latecomer. Now he appears like a ghost, and Dustless is not surprised. With his ability, it is impossible for him to find out that I modified Dorag's memory. With Bear's current strength, according to Dustless's guess, he can barely be equal to Admiral, and he is not even an opponent of Admiral. It is impossible to see that he can do something to Dorag. He raised his thoughtful eyes and frowned at the night scene outside the window. His pale face turned sharply, and his face changed faster than turning a book. In the blink of an eye, it changed into a cold little face. The night is long and the wind is cold. Do you want to stand outside the window all night? Dustless's thumb rhythmically tapped on the smooth stone chair, and a slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The visitor had already guessed most of it. Even though the aura of the mysterious expert outside the window was well concealed, like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water without leaving a trace, Dustless was still sharp enough to catch the slight changes in the air. Based solely on the movement of the body, no matter how flawless the concealment was, there would still be loopholes. It could even be said that there were hundreds of loopholes. Outside the window, everything was still silent. The bright moon hanging in the distant sky was still beautiful. Nothing had changed. The only difference was that Dustless's villa was shrouded in an oppressive aura. Not going to come out? Bartholomew Bear. After a while, Dustless realized that the person behind the scenes was still hiding. He smiled coldly and even directly called out the person's name. Kids nowadays like to be naughty. They have a bone-deep love for this kind of hide-and-seek game. Since you haven't shown yourself, I'll help you. After saying that, the dark void above Dustless's head suddenly became abnormally dazzling. It was so bright that one could not open their eyes. They could only look through the gaps between their fingers. The originally black sky had turned into a golden color. A large group of small whirlpools condensed in the void. All kinds of heavenly weapons slowly emerged from the whirlpools, revealing a sharp cold light that was enough to penetrate steel and iron bones. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After a moment of silence, dozens of sharp weapons shot out in unison. The final outcome of any creature that was pierced was only death. Boom boom boom. The exquisitely decorated window instantly split into 4 or 5 pieces. The fragments that burst open were as light as a feather, dancing wildly in the sky. The dense holes were clearly visible, about the size of a fist. The wall trembled violently. Seeing that it was about to completely collapse and shatter into pieces, a wave of air burst out. Bing! Ka-ka-ka! An unusually strong wave of energy hit. All kinds of hard heavenly weapons were instantly corroded and dismembered, turning into a pile of golden powder. They were neatly piled on the ground. The glittering golden color was very beautiful. A black shadow of 6 or 7 meters no longer hid, and the majestic body that blended into the darkness drilled out. From the intelligence ability of the world government, you should know my ability. This kind of weak attack has little effect on me. Wanting to reward me is nonsense. Due to the excessive size of his body, every time he moved his feet, the ground would tremble rhythmically with him. If I want to kill you, I definitely won't use this kind of flashy attack. However, if I want to attract the fireflies, how can I not release gorgeous fireworks? Dustless teased as he looked at the figure covered in a black coat playfully. A certain golden glitter. If he knew that Dustless used his ability as a light to illuminate the way, he would be depressed to the point of vomiting blood. Looking closely, it was Bartholomew Bear. Looking at Dustless, Bear's meatball palm suddenly raised and aimed at Dustless's eyebrows. An unprecedented powerful destructive force condensed in his palm. Wuxian, who was on the stairs, just smiled. He wasn't afraid at all. His body didn't even show signs of moving. He just sat there calmly, sizing up the bear from an overlooking angle. A sudden visit in the middle of the night. I thought you would say something that would interest me, but I didn't expect you to use force again. If I didn't guess wrong, you should be a cadre of the Revolutionary Army. Don't you pay attention to reason? It's better to use your mouth instead of your hands. Carefully observing Bear's body, Dustless shrugged and his face was full of helplessness. It's really embarrassing to control my strength. If I accidentally kill you, Sengoku will definitely make things difficult for me in front of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. So I advise you not to ask for trouble. Crocodile is an example. With his hands on the armrest, he sat leisurely on the stone chair and stared at Bear, who visited in the middle of the night. Then he closed his eyes and thought carefully in his mind. He had already guessed the reason for his visit. Sorry about today. Chapter 495. Even an ordinary person would be infuriated by the continuous barrage of mockery and ridicule. However, Bear's emotions did not waver from the beginning to the end, which coincided with the deceased's. His dark skin was relaxed, his breathing was even, and he was quietly holding an unknown book with a purple cover in his left hand. It was not difficult to see that Bear was extraordinarily calm. It also indirectly shows that in the face of Dustless, he has no pressure and can deal with it calmly. After a while, Bear's paw fell on Dustless, quietly examining Dustless. He is surprisingly calm, at least much better than Crocodile, and he is also a wise man. His pupils dilated slightly, completely ignoring the disadvantages of distance and environment. All kinds of subtle changes in Bear were played out in Dustless's eyes. The whole person is like a sculpture, and he has been maintaining this expression in front of him, giving the impression that he is quite old-fashioned. At this moment, Bear's paw suddenly raised, gathering a far more powerful impact than before. A white gas cover was very conspicuous against the black night. My purpose is the same as Crocodile's. The old-fashioned face was full of killing intent, and the white gas cover condensed by the paw also came out. Aiming at Dustless, it roared down without hesitation. Bear is a paramecia fruit user. The fruit can bounce off all forces. It can compress the air and create something similar to a cannon, including fatigue and all kinds of injuries and pain. Such a comprehensive and versatile fruit is rare, and it also shows that Bear's strength is extraordinary. Boom, boom, boom. With the roaring explosion, the stone chair Dustless was sitting on suddenly burst like a tofu and turned into white powder flying in the sky. The result of the impact on the human body can be imagined. Only a large deep pit was left at the place where the absolute impact occurred, and Dustless was nowhere to be seen. With the fragile body of a human, it seems that he may be directly crushed into nothingness. Seeing this scene, Bear's heart was not happy, but it was full of vigilance. His unchanged face was also slightly relaxed, and the subtle wrinkles between his eyebrows could not be noticed if he didn't pay attention. If he could be killed so easily, Crocodile wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state, losing all his dignity. Bear, I heard that the hardness of your body is beyond imagination. It's even harder than steel. I wonder if it's as magical as the rumors say. The ghostly sound spread out quietly, accompanied by a golden beam of light. Sensing the cold light behind him, the bear's paw simply condensed the white air shield again. Bang! Just as the beam of light was about to pierce through the bear, the air strangely exploded. The bear's majestic and tall body seemed to have teleported and disappeared without a trace. When it reappeared, it was behind Dustless. Its palm had already condensed an air shield and aimed at Dustless's thin and weak body. It was not hard to imagine what would happen if it hit a body of flesh and blood. Boom boom boom. Under the strong impact, Dustless's body was instantly slapped away. The sound of bones breaking could be clearly heard. He slammed weakly against the wall, leaving a large deep pit, and then fell to the ground with wounds all over his body. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead, and his breathing was weak and negligible. Although I am also a pirate in the emerging force of the 7 warlords of the sea, I am different from Crocodile. If you are not careful, you will die. Looking indifferently at Dustless, who had no breath on the ground, Bear reminded him out of goodwill. Boom! With a loud bang, a burst of white smoke emerged out of thin air. Dustless, lying in the deep pit, strangely turned into a piece of ravaged green wood. A black shadow rushed towards Bear, and a black iron fist directly greeted his face mercilessly. Bear was not afraid when he saw this, and his thick and strong arms also blasted out, choosing to fight head-on. Boom! One big and one small fist collided fiercely, and a wave of ripples visible to the naked eye appeared in the air. Under the black night sky, the two figures confronting each other also came into view. Really, it's so noisy in the middle of the night. Are they all kids who haven't grown up yet? In the brightly lit room, the Gorosei 5 elder stars looked at each other and could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. It was difficult for such a big movement not to disturb them. However, the 5 chose to turn a deaf ear to what was happening outside. It's really despicable. Carefully observing Dustless, who was close at hand, Bear suddenly became talkative with a little irony. Whenever the enemy thinks that victory is in their hands, they will take the opportunity to defeat the opponent with the most ironic attack. This is you. This was the case before when Dustless and Crocodile fought. When Crocodile thought that victory was in his hands, what greeted him was not the sweet smile of the goddess of victory, but the fist that beat him up. The two fists were tightly attached to each other. Obviously, the strength was the same. Compared with the cautious Bear, Dustless was much more relaxed. In a stalemate, Dustless and Bear chose to retreat at the same time. A sneak attack is despicable? In other words, as long as I choose to attack openly, you can defeat me. Touching his smooth chin, Dustless asked with interest. Nodding slightly, the strength exposed by Bartholomew Bear in front of him is indeed beyond the previous Crocodile. In particular, the teleportation just now was no worse than his speed of light. It was almost impossible to capture, and it was even more advantageous than the speed of light. After all, light can only move in a straight line, but Bear doesn't seem to have this restriction. He can choose any place according to his own will. Whether it is destruction or speed, Bear is better than Crocodile, who was defeated by Dustless. Although Crocodile is a little clever and cunning like a fox, Bear is not an idiot. The bounty has reached more than 100 million, and at the same time he can be invited to be a great pirate of the 7 warlords of the sea. He is a perfect and special existence in all aspects. Chapter 496. It was no wonder that Xianxia was so confident when facing Dustless. It was because those who truly understood and witnessed Dustless's strength had almost all fallen. They had either stepped into the abyss or stepped into heaven. In terms of speed, it was not inferior to the speed of light or teleportation. It could travel among the strong in the world. Secondly, in terms of attack, the impact of the pressure exerted on the atmosphere was also unparalleled. Of course, this was because Xianxia had perfectly developed the meatball fruit. There was no such thing as an invincible fruit. Every ability differed from person to person. You have the speed of light, so do I. Xianxia's tall and sturdy body was much taller than Dustless. He looked down at Dustless and said, "If I'm not wrong, you are helpless against the speed of light." Then do you think you can defeat me with teleportation? Dustless did not comment. Frankly speaking, the speed of light was indeed tricky. It was really troublesome to see the tail but not see the head. Bang! Accompanied by an ear-piercing explosion, the majestic body disappeared without a trace. There was no one in the dark space, only Dustless was left alone. When the glint fruit activated the speed of light, there would at least be a straight beam of light. However, Xianxia's teleportation made him disappear mysteriously. He could only take the beating. This was because wherever he appeared it was completely under his control. Boom! The gorgeous and exquisite floor burst open with a bang. Bear, whose eyes were emitting bloody light, descended. The ground couldn't bear the weight of his body and directly collapsed. The condensed air shield in his hand directly rushed towards Wuxia. Formless waves of qi gushed forth, transforming into an absolute impact that could destroy everything in its path. You're using the same move again and again. Boring. Xianxia squinted his eyes and shot out a demonic light. Energy rose from his body and condensed into an absolute defense. Boom, boom, boom. The power of the air cannon was beyond imagination. The wet soil buried deep in the ground was dug up and exposed to the erosion of the air. Everything was destroyed. Only Dustless in Concisanu was safe and sound. Don't you have to turn your eyes into red pentagrams to use this ability? Staring at Dustless's eyes, Xiong was puzzled. In the past, whenever Dustless used this golden monster to fight, it would first turn into a scarlet kaleidoscope before activating its ability. Right now, Dustless's eyes were still in a normal human state. Do you feel confused? There are actually many things that you don't understand. The abilities that I've shown before are just the tip of the iceberg. You think that teleportation is invincible in front of me, but that's just your one-sided understanding. The corners of Wu Chen's mouth rose into a sneer as he mocked. Bear's greatest confidence was none other than his heaven-defying teleportation, which meant that he could easily dodge any attack. In fact, Dustless didn't care about Bear's ability. The so-called teleportation principle is very simple. That is, by using the fruit's ability to compress the surrounding air and surround the body, one can do space teleportation, which coincides with the principle of Sabaody Archipelago. It's not difficult to deal with this ability as long as the surrounding space is sealed in advance. In the end, Bear still uses the compressed air to move, relying on his body to move. It's not really crossing space. It's not my turn to use that 6 Crimson Yang formation. It's not interesting to solve the battle in an instant. I might as well play with you. Carefully observing Bear's expression from the beginning, Dustless's mouth curled into a playful smile, and at the same time his eyes turned scarlet-red Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Amaterasu. The ghost fire from hell strangely burned on Bear's body, and almost in the blink of an eye, it swallowed his whole body. Ooh. Ah. Even Yi Xiong, who was a man of few words, cried out in pain in the face of this strange black flame. He hurriedly activated his ability and a shockwave spread out from his body. The black wool, the wisps that were on the surface of his skin were instantly sent flying. Using the air to repel the Amaterasu, this principle seems to be similar to the Shinra Tensei. Even if Amaterasu was heaven-defying, it couldn't burn the invisible air. This was also one of the abilities of the meatball fruit, which could repel things on the surface of the skin. The ability of the meatball fruit was so heaven-defying, it could repel physical damage including fatigue using the unique ability of the air to repel. Even if the reflexes were sufficiently developed, it could repel the enemy's attack. Return the favor. Along with Bear's roar, the scattered black flames all sprayed towards Dustless, and there was no place to hide. Boring. Glancing at the incoming Amaterasu, Dustless's left eye suddenly spun rapidly, and turned into the reincarnation Sharingan. The 9 mysterious dark Magatama could be clearly seen and it was very mysterious. Dustless ignored the Amaterasu fire that engulfed his body in an instant, and his whole body was covered in a black flame coat. Spitting a cocoon. Seeing this, Bear's expression loosened and he revealed a sarcastic smile. Spitting a cocoon? That's nonsense. A calm voice came out from the black flames, and then the fire of the Amaterasu gradually became smaller, revealing a pale face. His hair was still stained with the black flames, but it was slowly extinguished and in the end, it was quickly swallowed by some mysterious force. Looking down at the torn corner of Bear's clothes, Dustless's lips curled into a scornful smile. Open your eyes and look carefully. This is the so-called teleportation, although there is a limit to the distance. In the dark space, Dustless suddenly disappeared and his breath completely disappeared. Bear was left looking left and right trying to find traces of Dustless. Your reaction is really slow. Of course this is not your fault because the heavenly hand force is such a strange technique. Suddenly, a golden photon sword appeared in front of Bear, and following it was a golden photon sword. When the sword fell, everything was over. Chapter 497. Bear had goosebumps all over his body, and the golden luster in front of his eyes went straight to his forehead. When the light sword arrived, he had a sense of death and suffocation. The majestic and huge body instinctively reacted and retreated at the most incredible speed in his life. Poochie! Blood splattered everywhere as he raised his saber. In the pitch-black night sky, a crimson light flashed. Suddenly, purplish-red plum blossoms appeared on the ground, and a fishy smell unique to blood spread out. Bear's nerve reflex speed was beyond imagination. At the critical moment he avoided the fatal sword light and sword shadow. Even so, he still couldn't escape from Incubus. Although he escaped from Dustless's first wave of attack, he was still caught up by absolute speed and successfully dealt the final blow. Bear's right arm, which he often used to attack, had a straight burn wound clearly visible. Because of the hot kusanagi, the new bloody wound has been burned, and the length of the mark is almost half of his entire length. Oh, Bear, this reaction ability. Oh. Dustless secretly smacked his lips. If it was Crocodile, he would have been separated forever. Now Bear is only in his 30s, which is very young for a pirate's lifespan. There is still a long time and there is still the possibility of infinite progress in the future. His strength can't reach the level of Whitebeard, but at least he can enter the strength of an admiral. His body is really strong. Looking carefully at Bear's wound, Dustless was quite surprised. Now Bear's body has not been transformed by Vegapunk, and it is not as strong as it will be in the future. The feeling of cutting his skin was no different from cutting steel. Just as Dustless sighed, the dark space suddenly turned crimson. The ability to make others envious. Looking up, he saw Bear's palm, gradually extending a crimson air shield, slowly increasing in size and finally out of his palm. It has no attack effect. The Bear's pained expression immediately eased, and its expression returned to normal, returning to its previous old-fashioned self. Dustless knew that this was Bear's physical fatigue and the pain caused by physical damage, all of which were reflected by the fruit's ability. After the Bear recovered, he once again glared at Dustless. Killing intent burst out from his body, and the suppressed killing intent was filled with intense hatred. He wanted nothing more than to tear Dustless into pieces. As you can see, your attack has no effect on me. After saying that, Xiong's killing intent became even deeper. He did not care about Dustless's movements and concentrated on compressing the air. Wuxian just smiled when he heard that. Are you saying that you want to exhaust me to death with your own ability? Perhaps this strategy was a good one for others, but for Dustless it was negligible. In the face of unlimited chakra and absolute strength, any schemes and tricks were just self-deception. Before we start, I have a question that I need you to answer. Why are you looking for me? Seeing the chi cover in Xiong's hand getting bigger and bigger, Dustless called out for it to stop. He still had many questions waiting for Xiong to answer. For Dustless's words, Xiong directly ignored them and continued to compress the air. Time passed quickly, the white chi cover was getting bigger and bigger, and an unprecedented silence suddenly descended. It was certain that the villa where Dustless lived for a while would be completely wiped out by the compressed air. Even if you want a yard after taking an inch, you should know when to stop. You ungrateful thing, don't get too carried away. Seeing that Xiong did not know the immensity of heaven and earth, Dustless's expression became cold, and his whole body erupted with hostility. His eyes were focused on the expanding chi cover and his face was full of ridicule. This is Mariehua, my territory. You are so unscrupulous. Where can I, a celestial dragon, put my face? His words were full of killing intent and filled with some kind of evil magic. Above the white chi cover, the void began to surge slightly and then suddenly twisted. A small whirlpool slowly took shape and kept expanding. It looked harmless to humans and animals. Divine power. As Dustless's voice fell, The vortex floating in the void instantly magnified by more than 100 times, and the white chi cover that Xiu Xian had been gathering for a long time was directly swallowed. Even because the suction force was too strong, Xiong's whole body was almost sucked in. There is actually such an ability. Xiong took a deep breath with difficulty, lost his indifference and said in shock. The mysterious and powerful suction force was controlled very cleverly, just right. He was even sure that it didn't need much, just a little more density and his whole body would be annihilated. As for the unknown dark space on the other side, it was naturally the universe graveyard. Xiong suddenly realized that he was fighting with Dustless, and was about to activate the fruit's ability to fight again, when a golden rainbow flashed in the dark night sky and fell from the sky. Boom boom boom, the ground collapsed and shattered and the cracks crazily extended like a spider web. Dust and smoke rose everywhere, and the bumpy ground gave people the illusion that they were living on the surface of the moon. The surrounding buildings were all destroyed and it was extremely desolate. You should be more obedient now. In the deep pit, Dustless stepped on Xiong's body with one foot and his eyes were cold. Looking around, he saw that the surroundings were filled with sandstorms caused by the explosion. A majestic energy wave was flung out from his hand, and the devastating storm in the sky immediately calmed down. On the other hand, Xiong's 6 to 7 meter tall body was covered with all kinds of wounds, and he was bleeding non-stop. Piercing pain spread all over his body, and because of Dustless's suppression he didn't even have the chance to activate the fruit's ability to repel the pain. For a moment he was tormented. We have no grievances in the past and no hatred today. You tried to assassinate me in the middle of the night, and if you don't give a reasonable explanation, even if I kill you, it will be hard to vent the hatred in my heart. Dustless stared at Xiong with a smile, and the viciousness in his tone caused the air to freeze. No grievances in the past and no hatred today? Hearing this, Xiong laughed strangely as if he had heard the most ignorant joke in the world and said with hatred, "You bastard, do you think you can fool everyone with your tricks?" Chapter 498. Xiong stared at Dustless crazily with a ferocious look. He couldn't wait to swallow him whole, and a piercing chill overflowed from hundreds of millions of pores all over his body. The cold killing intent even wanted to freeze Dustless's right foot that was stepping on him. The dying struggle of a beast. Seeing this, Dustless sneered again and again and his eyes flashed with a strange color. Looking carefully at Xiong's scarlet eyes because of rage, Dustless knew that he was revealing his true feelings. He didn't expect this guy to have such a deep relationship with Dorag. He joined the abnormal organization Shichibukai in advance just to avenge Dorag. Even if you lose your life, you still want to avenge Dorag? Dustless asked with a smile while looking at the furious Xiong quietly. To be honest, he admired Xiong's loyalty from the bottom of his heart. However, admiration is not an excuse for Dustless to forgive Xiong. He dared to assassinate him in public and it is impossible not to pay the price. And this price will be his life. Humph, a gentleman dies for his friends, such a simple truth, how can you celestial dragons understand? Still maintaining a ferocious and cold look, Xiong sneered. The actions of the celestial dragons are known to the world, and cold-blooded animals are synonymous with them. Xiong hates the world government very much and he hates the celestial dragons even more. I really don't understand. Hearing this, Dustless nodded and then looked at Xiong faintly and his eyes showed a deep light. But in the current situation, it seems that the fetters are useless. Whoever has the bigger fist, whoever has the final say. Narrowing his eyes, Dustless pondered for a long time and asked the doubts in his heart. How did you find out that Dorag is wrong? Even if you are 10 times stronger, you can't find out that I have tampered with his memory. Dustless only used the Tensigan to modify Dorag's goal. And his personality has not changed, and he is still the silent Dorag of the past. It's very simple. Once a person's goal changes, his personality will naturally change slowly. Not only me but many people have also noticed Durag's abnormality. In the past, Durag's goal was to save the world. Therefore his temperament was very sacred and approachable. But now Durag gave people a much more selfish and indifferent feeling. This also indirectly showed that his will had been shaken, and his temperament had undergone some unknown changes. As long as one went to Logue Town and asked around, one could vaguely guess the truth of that day. After all, there were quite a number of people who saw Durag being defeated by Dustless. So what? It is true that I did something to him. However, do you think that you can change anything? Dustless said coldly as he looked at Xiong with disdain. He had already guessed that Xiong had taken advantage of this opportunity to join the 7 warlords of the sea to get close to him, so that he could wait for a chance to retaliate. Moreover, Dulag is only using the slogan of practicing medicine to fulfill his own ambition. Thinking of the memory in Dulag's mind, Wuxian was even more disdainful of this and held a contemptuous attitude. All human beings are selfish. After the world government is overthrown, the emperor above all living beings will be Durag. It's a pity to kill you. You will soon become the same existence as Durag, change your consciousness and memory and become my slave. A light suddenly flashed in his mind and Dustless decided. What a good big bear, just put a collar on him and make him loyal to himself forever. It's a pity to kill him in a hurry. It's also a waste to make use of trash. Don't even think about it. Xiong retorted with a livid face and his body began to struggle violently. Even though he has been subdued by Dustless, Xiong's majestic power has not been reduced at all. His 6 or 7 meter body moved and the earth shook. It's already my mercy to not kill you and you still want to resist. In this case you can't blame me for mercilessly abusing animal. Anyway, your body's recovery ability is strong enough. The frost on his face condensed and Dustless's strength also increased. His right foot still stepped on Xiong's back, but the strength was more terrifying than before. Ka ka ka. The ground that couldn't bear the weight directly burst and it was as fragile as a piece of white paper. Xiong also vomited blood uncontrollably, and his dark face became pale, like a candle in the wind, revealing the bone marrow powerlessness. Dustless's calf on his body weighed thousands of pounds in an instant, and his bones trembled violently. What is your purpose? Xiong asked in a deep voice as he endured the piercing pain all over his body. Since he chose to control Durag, a force that is hostile to the world government, it shows that Dustless's purpose is not simple. A Tenryubito holding a revolutionary army behind the scenes, Xiong's back is cold when he thinks about it. It's not that he can't bear it, but the idea is too crazy. Your revolutionary army as well as the 7 warlords of the sea will be my loyal dogs in the future. I know it's my subordinates. I'm really sorry. If I don't pay attention I will speak the truth. Regardless of Xiong's expression, Wuxian made a distressed expression. You fart, Shichibukai, was established by Sengoku. What does it have to do with you? The pirate organization of Shichibukai was proposed by Gorosei, 5 elder stars, and was finally led by Sengoku. It had nothing to do with Dustless in the middle. What does it matter? Of course I established it with the help of Sengoku. Hearing this, Dustless's mouth pulled a strange smile and said straightforwardly. Sizing up the gentle and refined face of Dustless, whose face was filled with evil, Bear felt a pressure he had never felt before. There was also a huge conspiracy shrouding him, making it extremely difficult for him to breathe. Crocodile, that idiot, thought that he was unparalleled and could play with anyone in the palm of his hand. Funny. Dustless said with a sneer. He has no good feelings for this crocodile uncle who thinks he is smart and invincible. The reason why he didn't die is entirely for a future plan. If not, Dustless's painstaking efforts from before would be wasted. Chapter 499. Dustless is the kind of person who is narrow-minded and extremely vengeful. Crocodile provoked him for no reason. For Dustless, he has already indirectly committed a capital crime. He didn't kill him just because he still has value. Dustless still understands the well-known truth that people who threaten him should be removed in advance. Keeping him alive is to squeeze out his last value. After taking a long deep breath, Dustless seemed to be a little sleepy. He casually found a place to sit down on Ursa's body and then said coldly, whether it is you or other members of the 7 warlords of the sea in the future, you are all my chess pieces. Looking at Ursa's eyes, Dustless went straight to the point. There's no need to hide it. Anyway, Ursa is not a valuable person like Crocodile. He can directly modify his memory. Nonsense. Ursa's indifferent and disgusted eyes swept across Dustless. Ursa snorted and looked at the ground. Ursa suddenly felt that Sengoku and Dustless are both members of the world government. The former is indeed much kinder. You and Dorag have a really deep relationship. Looking carefully at the burly Ursa, Dustless sneered and said, Don't worry, since you control Dorag, you will accompany him as a revolutionary cadre. Ursa's value is not as good as Crocodile. Although he is stronger than him, he can't escape the fate of Dustless's evil claws. What does Jinbi have to do with you? Suddenly the fishman with blue eyes appeared in his mind. Ursa said in a deep voice, compared with other pirates, Jinbi is different. He will never be your dog. Looking up at Wuxia, Xiongran said fearlessly. When he joined the revolutionary army, he had already disregarded life and death. Especially now, for him it was better to die than to live. He would die cleanly in a few days. Jinbi is famous for being the Knight of the Sea. He is not the kind of pirate who cares only about profit. What a joke, their princess is my slave. What can Jinbi do? Dustless sneered with a playful smile on his face. Princess Otoheim, the object of Jinbi's respect, was actually Dustless's servant. Even now, the mother and son's body still has the charm planted by Dustless. The effect of a Jinbi was negligible, and Dustless also turned a blind eye to it. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will pay them back 100 times. This is Dustless's creed. If Jinbi can obediently go down, Wuxia can naturally treat everything that happened before as a fleeting cloud, a reflection in the water. But from another point of view, Jinbi also took the initiative to provoke him like Kuma. Everything is another matter. Sleep well forever for me. Seeing Xiong, who was usually a man of few words, twitching his mouth again, Wuqian's left eye suddenly rippled, and the mysterious and unadorned 9 black magatama trembled slightly. In a short time, Kuma's eyes turned into the same Rinnegan as Dustless. The only difference is that there is no tomo in his eye sockets. This farce is finally over. Seeing this, Dustless stretched his body. The next step is to be responsible for modifying Kuma's memory. Modifying the memory is a delicate work, and it won't work if he doesn't worry about it. He will turn Kuma into an idiot. With his right hand pressed against Kuma's head, Dustless slowly began to modify his memory. About half an hour later, Kuma walked away. His demeanor and expression were the same as before. There was no change. The only difference was that there was an inexplicable master called Uchiha Wuchen in his mind. Raising his head to look at the bright moon hanging high in the distance, tiredness and sleepiness spread all over his body like a tide. Just when Wuchen was about to have a good rest, an unexpected figure broke out of the ground. Looking closely, it was White Zetsu with a strange face. There's a problem. Without waiting for Dustless to speak, White Zetsu said in advance. Thinking of the funny and stupid things made by someone, he couldn't help but shake his head. Now he understands the specific meaning of, if you don't seek death, you won't die. After Blackbeard grabbed the power rock, he brought it back to Whitebeard's fleet. Dustless's dim eyes lit up and he suddenly became interested. Blackbeard was able to seize the power rock. It was naturally the result of Sengoku's deliberate action. He wanted to take advantage of Blackbeard. It can be imagined what would happen to the entire Whitebeard pirates after the explosion of the power rock, a device comparable to ancient weapons. And then was that old guy Whitebeard killed by the power rock? Thinking of the terrifying power of the power rock, Dustless asked expectantly. White Zetsu shook his head resolutely and said bluntly, "No, the timing of the automatic detonation of the power rock seems to be too early." Blackbeard took it away suddenly and didn't have time to bring it to Whitebeard's battleship. Dustless's eyes flashed with disappointment, then he waved his hand. The complicated device of the power rock is indeed not easy to control. It will explode when it comes into contact with the air. It is a miracle that Vegapunk can set an automatic detonation device. But only Blackbeard barely survived. White Zetsu opened his mouth again and then his face was full of strangeness. Thinking of what happened before, White Zetsu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Blackbeard was a despicable villain and he was calculated by Sengoku. With Blackbeard's wisdom, he can guess that the murderer behind the scenes is a high-level marine without thinking about it. Blackbeard buried the rest of the power rock on the island where the marines were stationed in the New World, and groups of marines were blown to pieces by the power rock. Hearing this, Dustless smiled for a while and at the same time he couldn't help but frown at Blackbeard's ruthlessness. He dared to use the power rock to blow up the marines. This has touched the bottom line that Sengoku can accept. Despite this, Dustless still chose to watch from the sidelines. He is just an honorary admiral of the Marine headquarters, and this kind of thing is a headache for Sengoku. Chapter 500. The warm morning sun came and the fiery red sun slowly emerged from the eastern sea, driving away the cold darkness and returning a bright world to the earth. As a result of last night's battle, Dustless's private villa has been destroyed, and he can only go to other Tenryubito families to stay. Because of his fierce reputation, those fat Tenryubito showed a sense of propriety. It wasn't until the sun was high in the sky that Dustless opened his eyes sleepily, and under the care of Hancock he reluctantly opened his eyes. Birds of a feather flock together, living in the corrupt circle of Tenryubito all day. Unconsciously, Dustless was also affected. In the past few months, Hancock has gradually adapted to the work of a maid, and she can reluctantly accept Dustless in her heart. Although he is also a Tenryubito, there is a dimensional gap. Of course he is also very bad, but at least he doesn't torture slaves. Louis South, Holy Gersa has been waiting for a long time. Seeing Dustless still half asleep and half awake, Hancock didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She didn't see that Dustless had the attribute of staying in bed before. Especially the bald Gorosei in the hall, who has been waiting for nearly half an hour. The weasel has to pick a time to pay a New Year's greetings to the chicken. The old man came to me early in the morning. It's not a good thing. You can just find an excuse to pass it. Dustless waved his hand and said impatiently. He was about to lie down on the mattress. It may be because of the 7 warlords of the sea. This morning reporters from all over the world arrived at Mariehua by boat. Hancock explained, thinking of the major events in recent days. Dustless heard the words and his sleepy face became clear, and his eyebrows squeezed together. As the name suggests, 7 warlords of the sea is naturally composed of 7 members. At present there are only Hawkeye Mihawk, Sand Crocodile, Tyrant Bartholomew Kuma, and Knight of the Sea Jinbi. That is, Shichibukai currently has only 4 members, and the government announced 7 members to the outside world. This is equivalent to slapping your own face. There were only 4 out of 7 members, which also meant that the other 3 invited great pirates rejected the world government. People with rich emotions would inevitably question the prestige of the world government. After pondering for a while, the fruitless Dustless no longer hesitated. After a simple wash-up, he walked straight to the hall in front of the corridor. On an island somewhere in the New World. The originally desolate island was filled with all kinds of emerald green trees. However, the originally desolate island was now filled with people. Huge warehouses were neatly arranged in neat rows. Inside were all the equipment and tools needed to build Pluto in the future. In the spacious room, 2 figures could be clearly seen. Doflamingo, who was covered in pink feathers, was sitting leisurely on the sofa, humming a random tune. He looked rather carefree, and that was indeed the case. He had been living a very leisurely life recently. Bang! A loud voice rushed out of the door. The person controlled his body and ran towards Doflamingo. Even though he was running, his speed was extremely slow. What's the matter with Treble? Keep an eye on Caesar. Opening his eyes and looking at the sloppy person, Doflamingo ordered with dissatisfaction. Caesar's status has soared, and he is even more important than himself. The people in the world who can create Pluto are definitely not more than a handful. It is not impossible for Dustless to kill him. That idiot is busy studying the design drawings all day long. He's very focused. We don't need to worry about him. Hearing this, Treble sneered and handed the newspaper in his hand to Doflamingo. His fat and disgusting cheeks suddenly fanatically said, "Master, we don't have to hide in the future." Doflamingo was stunned when he heard this, but he still took Treble's newspaper. The headline of the newspaper that caught his eye was very simple. It just marked the establishment of Shichibukai. What attracted his attention the most was the people standing next to Fleet Admiral Sengoku. They were Hawkeye, Jinbi, Kuma, and Crocodile. After a while, Doflamingo wasn't as happy as he had imagined. Instead, his expression was as gloomy as water. His entire being was like a wild beast that had gone berserk, his killing intent awe-inspiring. Suddenly, 5 different colored lines appeared in his hand and the newspaper was twisted into pieces. "Brother Ming Yu." Treble's expression of exultation was restrained as he cautiously asked. Treble, who has been following Doflamingo for many years, knows that he is now on the verge of a volcanic eruption. A little carelessness will erupt and he will suffer. Damn Gorosei, 5 elder stars. His bronze face suddenly became very fierce, and Doflamingo's murderous intent was revealed. Due to his excessive anger, countless blue veins appeared on his forehead. It was as if there were worms hidden under his skin, surging forth in a hair-raising manner. Seeing such a scene, Treble subconsciously took a step back. The angry Doflamingo is more terrible than the devil. It is no wonder that Doflamingo is so angry. The people who joined the Shichibukai in the newspaper, except for Hawkeye, other people, whether it is Kuma, Crocodile or Jinbe, Doflamingo asked himself that he can surpass them. And his forces are much larger than the three of them. Despite this, Doflamingo still did not receive an invitation to become a Shichibukai. Why don't you ask that person? Treble took a step forward and tried to suggest with a bitter face. Doflamingo's identity is ordinary, but he is covered with all kinds of mysterious auras. The world government is also afraid to shoot the rat for fear of breaking the vases. They hope that one day someone can kill Doflamingo for the sake of the people. From the attitude of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, towards Doflamingo, it is impossible to give him the identity of Shichibukai. Hearing this, Doflamingo nodded and took out the den mushi used to contact Dustless. In the face of such an embarrassing situation, he has to admit that he wants to turn over and hug Dustless's thigh. Chapter 501. If possible, Doflamingo absolutely did not want to humbly beg others. People had dignity and he was once a celestial dragon, even more so. However, the current reality forced him to kick his dignity aside. Compared to the future rise of the Don Quixote pirates, his so-called dignity was just a worthless piece of scrap metal. The hesitation in his eyes turned into a resolute and decisive look. Clenching his teeth, Doflamingo still chose to hug the big thigh. Now only Dustless, who lives in heaven, can save them. It's impossible for him to attract the attention of the Gorosei, with his weak strength. Of course, it's more likely to attract the killers of the world government. You don't come here for nothing, Doflamingo. On the other side of the den mushi, Dustless's indifferent voice was heard, with a hint of banter and playfulness. Hearing this tone, Doflamingo frowned slightly, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth were choked back in his throat. Dustless gave him a feeling of waiting for him to come out. This frivolous accent made Doflamingo uncomfortable all over. He clearly knew that it was a trap, but he still jumped in regardless of his own safety. This was even worse than killing him. Thinking about the future of the Don Quixote pirates, Doflamingo chose to abandon his dignity. The damn Gorosei and Sengoku didn't think of me. 7 warlords of the sea has been established, but there is no place for me. It's ridiculous. Doflamingo's bronze face was gloomy like water, and he said with hatred, "There are worthless roadside goods like Crocodile and Jinbe, but without him how can Doflamingo remain calm? Only the aura of the Shichibukai can make him feel at ease and can live calmly under the sun." Don't worry. Dustless's calm voice came from the other side of the phone. Hearing this, Doflamingo, who was angry, wanted to refute, but he realized the gap between their identities and chose to shut up. Now he is Dustless's little brother. Doflamingo's blazing heart was doused with cold water, and only then did he calm down. Looks like the goddess of luck keeps passing by you. Time doesn't wait for you. On the other side of the den mushi, Dustless sighed. He naturally knew why the Gorosei rejected Doflamingo. Doflamingo has too many halos, and his ambition is enough to devour the world. Could it be that the fate of the Don Quixote pirates is to live on this desolate island? It's impossible to build an unprecedented super battleship like Pluto using such a narrow path. Doflamingo said with resentment in his heart. How could he remain calm when living on such a simple and insignificant island that was not even worth mentioning? He was also fascinated by the legendary king of the sea, One Piece. Dustless shook his head. Doflamingo was almost 30 years old. He didn't expect him to have such an unrealistic and ridiculous dream of being the pirate king. Pursuing one's dream doesn't have to be a pirate. No one says that only pirates can be the pirate king. In Dustless's view, this is just a lousy excuse that Doflamingo made for himself. It's not persuasive. Are you threatening me, Doflamingo? Dustless asked in a low tone. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face stiffened. He could even feel the cold air of Dustless in the den mushi. His body uncontrollably had goosebumps and he quickly changed his words. Now Dustless is his only hope. Abandoning him is tantamount to stepping into hell. It's certainly not a threat. We are now grasshoppers on the same boat. I won't do such a stupid thing. Doflamingo promised when he heard the anger in Dustless's tone. Whether it's insincerity or not, it's a fact that he and Dustless are grasshoppers on the same boat. If he gets off Dustless's boat, there is little hope for him to survive in the future. If there is no opportunity, you can create one. You can use your identity as a celestial dragon. Seeing Doflamingo lowering his posture, Dustless no longer put pressure on him. Doflamingo's idea of joining the 7 warlords of the sea was told in detail. Or rather, Dustless can come up with a lousy idea. As for the effect, only Doflamingo can experience it personally to know. Hearing the contents of the Den Mushi, Doflamingo's old face suddenly turned black. This is not a trick. In his view, it's a borrowed knife to kill someone. It's completely pushing him into the fire. This is the most practical strategy. Dustless said with certainty for fear of Doflamingo's suspicion. Doflamingo's cheeks were filled with embarrassment. This is like walking on a tightrope thousands of miles high. If he's not careful, he may fall to the ground and break his bones. Is there no other feasible way? Doflamingo asked unwillingly. Although Dustless on the other side of the Den Mushi said it with evidence, and even speculated what kind of expression the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars will have when they receive the news, Doflamingo still feels unreliable. This is the only feasible way. Your identity is sensitive. If you don't make some big movements that make the Gorosei feel helpless and have a headache, how can you move their hearts? In short, I've said the method and the final decision is still up to you. After that, Dustless didn't care how Doflamingo reacted. Whether he agreed or not, he simply hung up the Den Mushi and completely left it to the latter to decide. The trivial matters of the Don Quixote pirates still need to be solved by Captain Doflamingo. It's not Dustless's turn to point out a sharp mountain, but according to Dustless's final guess, Doflamingo should finally choose to listen to his own opinion. There is no other reason. The last time he came to Mariehua, he had completely offended the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars. Refusing Dustless's conditions is tantamount to stepping into hell. The highest power in the world, the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars. What kind of people are they? Dustless doesn't need to say more. Doflamingo also knows it like a mirror. 5 wolves and tigers that eat people without spitting out the bones. If he doesn't want to be torn to pieces, he can only do it according to Dustless's ideas. Chapter 502. Treble cautiously peeked at Doflamingo. When he saw that Doflamingo's vicious aura had been restrained, he heaved a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Although Doflamingo loves his family, crew, very much and treats them all as his brothers, but perhaps because of the reason that things go in the opposite direction, every time he remembers his cruelty to the enemy, Treble is uncontrollably afraid. Young master, that person means. Treble whispered to Doflamingo's left side. To this day, Treble and other members of the Don Quixote pirates still don't know the name of Dustless, and they dare not ask more. If it is suitable for them to know, Doflamingo will clearly tell them. Until today, Doflamingo has not told the members of the Don Quixote pirates about Dustless's origin, indicating that their identity is not enough to know. They can only use that person to call Dustless. His strategy is just a gamble. With a snort, Doflamingo said disapprovingly. His mouth said that he doesn't care, but he has actually decided to implement Dustless's strategy. Although it is somewhat absurd and even a little carelessness will lead to him stepping into a place of no return, which is equivalent to a moth flying into a flame. But even so, Doflamingo racked his brains and couldn't think of a more perfect plan. You mean to say that the young master wants to reject that person's plan? Although Treble's appearance is sloppy and idiotic, his brain is still quite clever. Doflamingo's words obviously reject Dustless's plan. That's not it. Although it's a bit unreliable, it's the only shortcut to get the name Shichibukai. Doflamingo shook his head and vetoed. The method is a bit crazy, but it can directly force the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars to make a decision, and it is also the most effective way. After thinking about it, the confusion in Doflamingo's eyes turned into unprecedented determination and confidence, and he decided to give it his all. I don't know if the Gorosei 5 Elder Stars will vomit blood when they know about it. Doflamingo's face was swept away and he thought with a wicked smile. Staring at Doflamingo's face, Treble instinctively felt that something was wrong. He intended to persuade him, but he was stared back by Doflamingo's fierce face. How is the ship's repair work if you can go to sea immediately? Not yet. Treble's ugly face looked awkward as he awkwardly said, I've been in charge of collecting all kinds of materials these days. Moreover, after we escaped from Impel Down, the ship has been broken into pieces. There is no possibility of repairing it. In addition, Caesar needs someone to look after him. These words were like bone-chilling cold water that extinguished Doflamingo's fanatical heart. Forget it, there is still a Shichibukai, 7 Shichibukai. Doflamingo's eyes. The fire in Doflamingo's eyes calmed down and he said calmly. It was useless to be too hasty. On the contrary, it might backfire. What Wuxian gave was only a vague concept and he still needed to plan in detail to realize it. With the official establishment of Shichibukai, the whole world was devastated by a magnitude 10 earthquake. The super-organization formed by 7 pirates definitely has the power to rewrite the world situation, even if there are only 4 pirates now. This kind of unprecedented organization belongs to the world government. For a time, there were many discussions around the world and most of them were abusive. Whether it was pirates, ordinary civilians, or marines, they all have an attitude of hatred for this deformed organization. It is reasonable for marines and ordinary civilians to hate the pirate organization Shichibukai. After all, the damage brought to them by the pirates is hard to forget. Their families and comrades have fallen in the blood of the pirates, and it is natural to hate them. What's funny is that the pirates also hate this weird organization, and they regard the members of Shichibukai as the world government's lackeys, and they can't wait to get rid of them. Hawkeye, is this your choice? On a remote island in the Grand Line, a big red ship was leaning against the shore. A bonfire was burning on the island, and a group of naked pirates were celebrating happily. Combined with the red skulls on the ship, it is the Akagami, red hair, pirates of the New World. Under the cool shade of the tree, Akagami, red hair, looked at the newspaper in his hand cautiously. He didn't care about the other pirates, but Hawkeye next to Sengoku caught his attention. Dustless suffered a crushing defeat in his hands, which has left an indelible mark in his heart. Since then he has been strengthening his strength. His strength has improved significantly. In the face of Dustless, Shanks still has no strength to fight. He can never let go of that bottomless strength. That guy is a monster. Thinking of Dustless's unfathomable strength, Shanks can only smile helplessly. It's not that he is incompetent, but that the enemy is too far away. With silver hair and a thin cigarette in his mouth, a young man who looked quite calm approached Akagami, red hair, and sat beside him very casually. It seemed that the two were quite familiar with each other. This person is Ben Beckman, the deputy captain of the Akagami, red hair, pirates. What is the origin of the people behind Hawkeye? Frowning, Akagami, red hair, was extremely puzzled. Shichibukai is just a recently established organization. Hawkeye seems to have been able to walk freely in the world government's base camp Mariehua a few months ago. His means are so powerful. As a pirate, Hawkeye is definitely the first person in the world to come and go to Mariehua safely. This speculation is very simple, but I'm afraid you can't accept the result. Beckman's squinted eyes emitted a wise light. In fact, the combination of various factors has explained everything. In the whole world, only the original residents of Mariehua, the celestial dragon, known as the descendants of the creator, can do it. Chapter 503. He is worthy of being the strongest brain of the Akagami, red hair, pirates. He is indeed a Tenryubito, and I saw it with my own eyes. Akagami, red hair, laughed and gave Beckman a thumbs up. He has long known the identity of Dustless's Tenryubito, because he wore the unique uniform of Tenryubito during the battle, and no one in the world dared to pretend to be a Tenryubito. The only thing that surprised red hair Shanks was that the identity of Tenryubito could make the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, give in and allow Hawkeye to freely enter and exit places like Mariehua. After all, Tenryubito is synonymous with waste, but he can make the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, give in and bow down. Maybe the status of Tenryubito is much higher than Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Beckman's eyes flashed and he rationally guessed. The impression of Tenryubito to the world is like a fat and incompetent person, and it is because of the protection of the world government that they can linger on. Now it seems that this is just wishful thinking of the world. 800 years ago, since Tenryubito could unify the world, it was said that they were not all useless. That may be the case. Akagami, red hair, nodded and agreed, and he also guessed the same. The strong are respected and pay attention to force. In the world where the fist is bigger, only special mysterious things that are enough to deter the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, exist, and Tenryubito can sleep peacefully. We used to be a frog in the well. Beckman laughed at himself when he thought of the past of Tenryubito. Not only the Akagami, red hair, pirates, but the whole world is deceived by the ugly and fragile appearance of Tenryubito, and the reality is far more complicated than they thought before. The mysterious enemy who fought with you doesn't seem to be an ordinary person. According to my guess, he can make the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, helpless. His status in Tenryubito is also not bad. Beckman pondered when he thought of Dustless, who defeated Akagami, red hair. In the final analysis, the world is still dominated by people with big fists. If you want to make the Gorosei, 5 elder stars bow down, you must have the capital to talk to them, strength. He is definitely not an ordinary person, otherwise, it would be impossible for him to defeat me. Rolling his eyes, Akagami, red hair, said angrily. These words sounded unruly, but it was an undeniable fact because in the entire world, there were very few people who dared to say that they could defeat or even crush red hair Shanks. Beckman has always remained calm. As the person with the highest IQ in the Akagami, red hair pirates, he often has unique insights. After careful consideration, he found that it is not impossible to win against Dustless. There's no need to worry. That guy doesn't look like a bad guy who would stop at nothing. With a bold smile, the naturally optimistic red-haired man indicated that there was no need to worry. Dustless didn't give him the impression that he was the kind of person who would do anything to achieve his goals. Beckman just shook his head when he heard this. As the strongest brain of the Akagami, red hair pirates, he is good at using his brain and thinking about danger in times of peace. It is because he considers all kinds of unstable factors that the Akagami, red hair pirates can prepare in advance and break through countless difficulties and obstacles to reach this height today. Maybe we can take him down if we join forces with the others, Beckman said seriously, his eyes shining. One red hair Shanks may not be enough to deal with Dustless, but 2 or 3 besieging Dustless together is enough to change the disadvantage, and the quantity will lead to the improvement of the quality. This is possible. Red-haired Shanks nodded in agreement. Although Dustless was powerful, he believed that he couldn't do everything. There was a saying that it was difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. For example, gathering the other Yonko 4 emperors to besiege Dustless. This is not realistic. Immediately thinking of the pirates who are like water and fire, Red Hair's fighting spirit was extinguished. If the pirates can really put aside their past grievances and hatred and work together to deal with the enemy, the Marine headquarters may not exist in this world. Not realistic? Not necessarily. Beckman smiled slightly. Compared with the slightly decadent red hair, he was full of confidence. Compared with the Marines, the pirates are indeed a pile of loose sand. They look hopeless, but in fact it is very simple to unite them, they just lack the right opportunity. Businessmen pursue profit, so do pirates. It is not difficult to join forces with the other Yonko 4 emperors to suppress Dustless. People like 100 Beast Dustless see Dustless as a thorn in their side and they can't wait to get rid of him. Perhaps they only need to propose to him and he will resolutely join the army that besieges Dustless. There is no need to do this for the time being. There is only motivation when there is oppression. Joining forces with others is always unreliable. Shanks took off the straw hat on his head and put it on his face to block the scorching sun. You will never do this unless it is a last resort. Beckman's idea also comes from the sudden rise of the 7 warlords of the sea organization. It is because the Marines fear the power of pirates that they will use the power of pirates to suppress the pirates. In his view, the reason why the organization Shichibukai was established is also a manifestation of the Marines' fear of the pirates. If the Marine can annihilate all the pirates by their own strength, there is no need to rely on the power of the pirates. The Marines are not idiots. If they offend all the pirates in the world, it is bound to cause a fierce backlash. and then the pirates of the entire sea will gather together. This gathered power is enough to destroy the whole world. Red Hair Shanks waved his hand and murmured. For the time being, there is no need to join forces with others. What's more, he can't disregard everything and join forces with others. The foundation of the cooperation between pirates is not the so-called trust, but the explicit absolute benefits. On the surface, they are righteous and exclude all alliances, but in the dark, there are countless such things like stabbing each other in the back. In the final analysis, pirates are always a group of people who chase their dreams and actually rob others. At least more than 95% of pirates are like this. It is self-evident what the consequences of such a group of people ruling the world. The Marines crusade against pirates for a reason, but pirates are synonymous with all kinds of evil. This is also the biggest reason why the Marines have failed countless times and can be forgiven. Chapter 504. It's no wonder that Akagami, Red Hair, is so hesitant. Pirates are synonymous with shamelessness, and cooperation is a last resort. Now they have not reached such a dangerous situation. It's not the right time to talk about cooperation. What's more, after the establishment of Shichibukai, Marine and the government did not make any extreme moves. Several big pirates are currently returning to their own territory. All in all, the hasty establishment of Shichibukai is a storm for the whole world, and the already strange and unpredictable world situation is more complicated for a while. Yonko, 4 emperors, reign over the world. Shichibukai is born, and all kinds of signs indicate that an unprecedented chaotic world is about to come, and the survivors who can stand out in this storm are the last heroes. On the blue sea, the luxurious ships slowly moved forward. The shape of the ship is quite similar to the battleship of Marine headquarters. The only difference is that it hangs the flag of the world government. The crew on the ship are not Marine soldiers. They are all men in suits, very similar to the exclusive bodyguards of Tenryubito. The gold and silver treasures piled up on the deck are all in sight, exposed to the sun at will, and all kinds of dazzling jewelry exudes a burning light. Even so, the pirate ships that passed by along the way, although they were eager to see through it, they still took a detour, and some even fled in panic for fear of not being able to avoid it. Treasures are precious, but they are still too far away from life. Why did he let these pirates who were greedy for money escape? There is no other reason. All the treasures on this ship are the heavenly gold transport ships from all over the world as tribute to Tenryubito. If they rob recklessly, the admirals of Marine headquarters will immediately chase after them. However, there are exceptions to everything. Today, someone came to rob the heavenly gold transport ship of Tenryubito and followed behind this ship. Young master, is it possible that you want to rob Tenryubito's heavenly gold? This is a moth to the fire. A large ship was clearly visible. Standing on the deck, Doflamingo looked at the big ship in front of him with a ferocious smile on his face. The greed in his bones is not concealed. Regardless of Treble's persuasion, he waved his arms and said fanatically, "I am robbing Tenryubito. Robbing Tenryubito's heavenly gold. Gorosei 5 elder stars. Can't ignore me." Hearing this, Treble was twitching with anger. Robbing Tenryubito's heavenly gold is tantamount to slapping Tenryubito's face, and the angry Tenryubito will definitely punish Gorosei 5 elder stars. This is equivalent to indirectly slapping Gorosei 5 elder stars in the face. Gorosei 5 elder stars. Gorosei 4, 7 elder, with Tenryubito 10 5 elder stars. 7 5 elder, 7 6 elder. This was simply asking the Don Quixote pirates to jump into a fire pit. So what if I don't embarrass them? How could they invite me to be a Shichibukai? Doflamingo said disapprovingly as he stared at the approaching heavenly gold transport ship. Since he has already offended Gorosei 5 elder stars, it is better to completely offend them. Anyway, with Dustless's strong protection and his identity as a Tenryubito, it is enough to ensure that he can grab Tenryubito's heavenly gold without worry. As Dustless said in the Den Mushi before, there is no free lunch in the sky. Danger and opportunity coexist. Wanting to get a generous return without paying a price is just a fool's dream. If things get big, Gorosei 5 elder stars will lose face. They will be pointed at by others and they will be able to face me. Although Doflamingo is unwilling, this is the fact. In front of Wuxia 5 elder stars. He is not worth mentioning. This remark made Treble speechless. To be a Shichibukai, not only does one need powerful strength to deter, but one also needs to have a chilling reputation. Robbing Tenryubito's heavenly gold, and being able to live leisurely in the world is enough to make the whole world go into an uproar. 3 days later in Marijoy's. In Dustless's villa, early in the morning the bald Wuxia 5 elder stars, with a knife came to ask questions, and the whole room was full of a strong smell of gunpowder. There should be a limit to your lawlessness. You dare to openly rob the heavenly gold that was offered to the celestial dragons. Even if you are audacious, you should stop before going too far. The bald Wuxia looked gloomy and gnashed his teeth. Then he casually handed a newspaper to Wu Chen. The largest banner in the newspaper was a laughing Doflamingo, arrogantly stepping on the head of a government official, and behind him were members of the Don Quixote family carrying gold and silver treasures. The picture in the newspaper was very clear, and there were even close-ups of Doflamingo, including the bombardment of the government warship, and the detailed photos of the robbery were published in the newspaper. Isn't this too detailed? It must be someone with ulterior motives who deliberately forged it to frame him. After a while, Dustless pretended to be stupid and said with an expression that had nothing to do with him, "Someone is framing Doflamingo? I hope so too. But he really did it." With a snort, the bald Wuxia 5 elder stars, with a knife, had long expected Dustless to be like this, and then took out a thick stack of photos from his waist and threw them on the table angrily. The figure in the photo was the proud Doflamingo, and the unscrupulous smile seemed to be mocking the incompetence and uselessness of the world government. The bald Wuxia 5 elder stars, with a knife, finally couldn't keep calm, and the terrible blue veins on his forehead bulged, his old face trembled with anger, and his furious roar resounded throughout the villa. That kid is simply insatiable. Not only did he rob Tenryubito's heavenly gold, but he also filmed the detailed robbery process himself, and the protagonist is him, Doflamingo. And it was copied into dozens of copies and sent to newspapers all over the world, threatening to kill all the newspapers if they don't make the headlines. The bald Wuxia 5 elder stars, with a knife, roared bitterly. He robbed the heavenly gold, and was afraid that others didn't know about it, and he also filmed it as his own special portrait, to make the world abuzz. Obviously, Doflamingo did this deliberately. Chapter 505. The bald Wuxia with the sword showed a murderous look, and the uncontrollable murderous look changed the surrounding space and environment. The moisture contained in the flowing air was frozen into ice and turned into fine snow-like debris falling to the ground, and the furniture in the villa was covered with a layer of cold frost. Doflamingo clearly knew how serious the consequences of doing this were, but he still did it without hesitation, making it clear that he wanted to slap the Wuxia in the face. And it was so loud. Shooting the whole robbery process and sending it to the major newspapers, and then threatening them to announce it to the world, such behavior is indeed challenging the dignity of the government. Dustless also couldn't help but admire Doflamingo's crazy actions. In the Den Mushi, he only proposed to Doflamingo that he could rob the sky gold, as a tribute to the Tenryubito, but this kid really turned his verbal proposal into a substantial action. The most excessive thing is that he took countless photos, directly making the world government lose face, and there is no chance to hide it. Yes, such a heinous person should be dealt with as soon as possible. Seeing that Dustless had signs of loosening his mouth to get rid of Doflamingo, the bald quintet immediately struck while the iron was hot. Just as he was about to propose to send someone to secretly get rid of Doflamingo, a casual sentence from Dustless made the words he had been organizing in his mind for a long time disappear in an instant. Straightforward, this is also in line with One Piece's personality. He is not afraid of anything. This is the true portrayal of a pirate. This is very well shown in him. Looking at the laughing Doflamingo in the photo, Dustless nodded. Hearing this, the mouth of the bald quintet elder stars holding the sword twitched violently. His old face suddenly collapsed and became gloomy. He had come to condemn Doflamingo, not to hear Wu Chen praise Doflamingo. Despicable bastard who colluded with evil. Remembering Doflamingo's sensitive identity, the 5 honored stars who were in charge of the household deflated, and the anger in their hearts dissipated. Even though the Don Quixote family has given up the identity of the Tenryubito and lost all privileges, the identity of the Tenryubito has never changed. The law of this world stipulates that the celestial dragons are supreme. With the almost invincible super halo of the celestial dragon identity, and the collusion with Dustless, the possibility of secretly killing Doflamingo was almost zero. A good world has been turned into a mess because of him. The celestial dragon's heavenly gold was robbed and the culprit, Doflamingo, was free and unfettered. The shock that spread was self-evident. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled. He knew how tangled these 5 elder stars were. The enemy was right in front of them, but they couldn't arrest him. They could only helplessly stare at him. Faced with such a cruel reality, the 5 elder stars had no way to deal with it because this was the law of this world. The purpose of Doflamingo is nothing more than the 7 warlords of the sea. It's better to take a step back and endure for a while to ensure that there will be no worries for 100 days. Glancing at the bald Gorsiai holding the sword, Wuxia kindly advised. Who made the law of this world so that the celestial dragons with countless privileges can't be arrested, even the world's highest power Gorsiai can't violate it. Hearing this, the bald Gorsiai's face was livid, and his eyes were locked on the rampant Doflamingo in the photo, and an awe-inspiring sword energy shot out. Ka. The complete photo suddenly burst open and turned into debris all over the ground, venting his anger. Impossible, how can such a bold criminal be condoned? Giving him the title of 7 warlords of the sea will only make him worse and ride on our heads. Shaking his head resolutely, the bald Gorsiai's tone did not have the slightest room for retreat. For Dustless, he can tolerate it. After all, Dustless is also a celestial dragon and his identity is nobler than their Gorsiai. Secondly, the bigger reason is that his absolute strength is almost extraordinary, and he is qualified to say no to their Gorsiai. Doflamingo is just a clown and he has repeatedly jumped out to slap their old faces. How can they tolerate it? Up to you, but don't lift a stone and drop it on your own feet. Doflamingo is not easy to deal with. If you underestimate him, your hands will be full of spikes. Seeing the bald Gorsiai so stubborn, Dustless shrugged and was too lazy to waste his breath. In this game, Doflamingo was destined to be the final winner at the beginning. In the original work, Doflamingo used this shameless means to threaten the world government, and finally achieved his goal and successfully became a member of 7 warlords of the sea. Now Dustless is secretly indulging Doflamingo and the final winner must be him. Goodbye. Perceiving that Dustless and the bald-headed Gorsiai, who had nothing to do with each other, also tactfully flashed away, Dustless's position had already been made clear. Staying behind would be asking for trouble. Do you think you can do whatever you want because you are a celestial dragon? Play with the whole world unscrupulously? The bald Gorsiai with the sword who came out of Dustless's villa was cold, and the cold light gathered in the corner of his eyes, and the dry corner of his mouth raised a cunning smile. The government is afraid of the identity of Doflamingo, but there is a kind of person who is not afraid of anything. The identity of a celestial dragon is useless, and if you provoke them you will be killed. The law stipulates that a celestial dragon is supreme, but this is only limited to those who obey the law. For those who do not obey the law, the life and death of a celestial dragon has nothing to do with them. A mere pirate dares to take an inch and take a mile. There are thousands of ways to kill you. A chill floated out of his body, and the gloominess on his old face was swept away and replaced by a strong self-confidence. Doflamingo's life as a pirate has offended countless enemies. Those enemies one day come to the door to revenge is understandable. Chapter 506. Doflamingo's life and death enemies are countless, as many as the carps crossing the river. He has done a lot of evil, offended and indirectly offended pirates, as well as some black market arms dealers who want his life. In other words, Doflamingo is such a person with enemies all over the world. If he is killed one day, it is a normal thing. You always think that you're an opportunistic winner and that you're unparalleled in scheming. In fact, you're no exception. You're just like those people you've schemed against in the past. You're just a chess piece in my hands. The bald quintet holding the knife despised Doflamingo to the extreme in his heart. Doflamingo always felt that he was very special. He could foresee and control everything in advance, leading any situation to develop in his direction. In fact, he was also a clown being used by others. Joker clown, huh? But this funny title really suits you, brother Doflamingo. The bald quintet elder stars holding a sword turned around and took a deep look at Dustless Mansion before he left. Hancock stood gracefully on the tall building. She looked through the transparent glass and observed the departing Wuxia, 5 elder stars. Her clear eyes rippled as she walked towards Dustless's bedroom with graceful steps. Master, he has left. Walking elegantly into the room, Dustless was sitting on the sofa with his eyes closed. Hancock calmly reported to Dustless. Time is the best medicine. In the face of Dustless, Hancock is no longer as afraid as before. Left? Is that old thing's head muddled from anger? Hearing that, Wuxian opened his eyes and wondered in puzzlement. In Dustless's cognition, whether it is the bald Wuxia with the sword or the other 4 Wuxia, they are the masters who will not act until they see the hair. If they did not get any benefits, it would be impossible for them to call for reinforcements. Maybe he felt that he couldn't take advantage of the young master, so he left. Hancock tilted her head and said her own analysis. Even she knows that the Wuxia are all cunning foxes. They have a way of thinking that ordinary people can't understand and guess. Once they think that they will not get any return for their labor, they will immediately retreat and terminate the plan. The bald Wuxia with the sword was like this. You said I am a villain? Dustless almost spat out the tea that he swallowed. He looked quite speechless, then he waved his hand and was too lazy to care about these details. Anyway, there is nothing wrong with a villain, at least he will not suffer. It is much better than suffering. After thinking about it, Hancock's words quickly caused Dustless to ponder. Hancock, have you ever seen a hungry tiger let go of a fat sheep in front of its mouth? And this fat sheep has touched the tiger's butt several times. After a long silence, Dustless suddenly asked. This. Hancock heard the words and her face turned red, and her eyes widened as she looked at Dustless. Usually, Wuxian gave others the feeling that he was extremely quiet and had an ethereal temperament. He liked to read all kinds of books, so he was also infused with a dense scholarly aura. No one would have thought that the gentle and refined Wuxian would make such a vulgar comparison. Although the description is very appropriate, Hancock was also stunned for a while and did not recover. The hungry tiger referred to the 5 elder stars, and the fat lamb was undoubtedly Doflamingo. This fat lamb would often touch the tiger's butt, and even disgusted the insufferably arrogant tiger. The Wuxia will not let go of Doflamingo. According to the style of the Wuxia, they will not let go of Doflamingo. Hancock nodded elegantly and calmly. In the past, when Dustless and Hawkeye talked about the Wuxia, she was still uncomfortable because these big characters are not in the same dimension as her, and now she can face them safely. There must be a demon when things are abnormal. What's the use of conspiracy? It won't play the slightest role. I'm a transmigrator from the 3rd dimension, so how can I not be able to defeat you backward natives from the 2nd dimension? With a sneer, Dustless said with great confidence. Although the 5 elder stars were full of mysteries and their identity, strength and origin were all in a fog, Wuxian did not think that he would lose to them. After all, he had traveled through time and had the ability to learn from history, to predict the future. What's more, in the past confrontations, Dustless has won. On the other side of Mariehua, in the room of the Wuxia, 5 old men of different statures were clearly visible. It was not difficult to see from the old but strong body that their strength is incredible, and the years have not left any traces on them. Are you ready? The Wuxia with blonde hair and bronze skin was dull. The meaning revealed in the words was that they did not put Doflamingo in their eyes at all. Even a small ant was not as good as him, so they simply brushed it off. This kind of tasteless little person doesn't need them to do it themselves. They just need to find evidence of Doflamingo's previous schemes and hand it over to others. Naturally, someone can't wait to clean him up. The other 3 Wuxia heard the words, and their eyes also turned to the Wuxia with long hair and beard. This is natural, it was just evidence left in case of accidents. I thought it would never be used in my life. I didn't expect it to be used now, and it was used when we didn't want to. The Wuxia with long hair and beard lamented the impermanence of the world, and his words had a little more appreciation for Doflamingo. To be honest, I don't think that kid can be so capable. All this is about to end. The abandoned son of the celestial dragons still wants to be Shichibukai. I'm afraid that even if we are willing, that group of celestial dragons may not be as Doflamingo wants. The Wuxia with a messy birthmark on his forehead also had a complicated expression. He didn't expect Doflamingo to be so troublesome and make the whole world jump up and down. In particular, his bold and extraordinary portraits had already spread throughout the world. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.